She worked in silence. She smiled when no one smiled back. She wiped the crumbs they left, held the doors they didn't see. And when they laughed, pointed, called her out, she walked to the old piano. What came next didn't sound like music. It sounded like truth. The plate rattled on the tray as Mabel adjusted her grip, weaving through the crowd of late lunchers at the Copper Spoon. Chairs scraped tile, silverware clinked, conversations overlapped like tangled wires. A burst of laughter flared from the bar. She barely flinched when a man slapped her on the back. "Lighten up, sweetheart," he barked. Her lips pulled into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She moved on. Behind the kitchen door, the heat hit her like breath. The fryers crackled. Someone yelled for more fries. Mabel stepped over a leaking bucket and found the head cook squinting at a pepper jar. "Lose your specs again, Mr. Rudy?" she asked. He grunted. "Swear they sprouted legs." She spotted them on the counter by the sink, handed them over without a word. "Thanks, sunshine," he muttered, already moving on. No one else looked at her. 15 minutes later, with her apron unknotted and fingers sore, Mabel slipped out the back. The alley buzzed with flies and smelled like hot grease and trash, but she didn't mind. In the corner, tucked beneath a bent awning and a stack of crates, sat an old, upright piano. Out of tune, keys chipped, 2 legs braced with books. She touched the wood like skin, ran her fingertips over the ivory, pressed one note, soft, sour, small, but still a note. "Hey, order mixed up again," shouted someone from the doorway. Mabel turned. Coming. Inside, a man in a tie scowled at the check. "This ain't mine." She bowed her head. "Sorry, sir." The manager swooped in, loud and sharp. "Mabel, we talked about focus. You double-check before you serve, not after." "I didn't," she started, then stopped. He turned away before she finished. By 4, the rush thinned. A regular named Mr. Henry waved her over. White hair, neat shirt, hands that trembled just slightly. "This thing's stuck tighter in a drum," he said, holding a water bottle. Mabel twisted it open in one go. "Kind hands," he murmured. "My daughter had hands like yours. Long fingers, played the violin." She smiled and walked on. Near the front, the loud man was back. The one with the drawl and the 2 clean boots. He pointed at her as she wiped down his table. "I'll bet y'all she can't play a damn note," he crowed. "Or spell one!" The table roared. Mabel said nothing, just kept brushing the crumbs into her palm. Later, the new trainee, a lanky kid with 2 big shoes, leaned over during dish duty. "What do you do after work?" she shrugged. "Practice." "Like sports?" "No," she said. "Music. A little. When there's time." He looked impressed. "You take lessons?" "Used to. Now I listen." The walk home was slow. The sun dipped low, filtering through broken blinds as she stepped into the apartment. Grandma was asleep in the armchair, mouth open, chest rising in slow rhythm. Mabel dropped her bag, washed her hands, sat at the kitchen table and spread her fingers like she might on a keyboard. Her shoulders moved slightly, silently, as if chasing a melody no one else could hear. On the counter lay a folded letter. She didn't open it. She already knew the words. "Unfortunately," it said, "regret to inform. No available funding." The next morning, the manager made an announcement. Friday night would be surprise night. All staff were encouraged to entertain. Joke, dance, sing. "Let's show our customers we're more than just servers, huh?" People laughed, joked about doing impressions or karaoke. Mabel stayed quiet. By the time Friday came, the mood was electric. A few waiters juggled cutlery in the back. Someone tuned a guitar. The man with the boots was already half drunk. He slapped the bar. "Time to kick things up. You there!" He pointed straight at her. "Come on, sweetheart, play us something. Let's see if you got any rhythm in those fingers." A few clapped. A few whistled. Not kindly. Mabel stood still. The tray in her hand felt heavier than usual. "Don't be shy," the manager said, nudging her forward. She looked over at the piano, dusty, crooked, waiting. She didn't smile, didn't speak, just walked over and sat down. Her hands hovered. Laughter buzzed behind her. A phone camera clicked. She placed her fingers, one note, then another, and then silence. Not polite silence, not curious silence, real silence, the kind that folds around a room like wool. A man in the back tilted his head. Someone whispered, "Wait." The air shifted. The kitchen noise faded. Even the fryers went quiet. No one had expected it to sound like that. No one had expected her to sound like that. The piano, wounded and wheezing, seemed to sing through her. The song wasn't a song they knew. It didn't belong to a jukebox or a radio. It stretched, ached, told a story only she understood. She didn't look up. She played like she was remembering something, someone. And when she finished, there was no applause. Not right away, just stillness. Even the man with the boots didn't speak. Mabel stood, her hands still shaped like the last chord. Then she walked away. Past the bar, past the stairs, back into the kitchen. And in that pause, long and full like a held breath, the restaurant forgot how to make noise. The air in the kitchen felt colder than usual. Or maybe Mabel was just still shaking inside. She'd barely stepped through the swinging doors before the manager caught up. "Well, that was something," he said, too brightly. "You've got a real hidden talent there." She didn't answer, just kept walking, her apron unknotted, her arms crossed tight. "You see that?" he called out to no one in particular. "That's what I'm talking about. Our staff's got soul." Mabel slipped past the prep station, past the muttering line cooks. Her heart was still pounding, but not from nerves. Something else was blooming in her chest, slow and hot. Not pride. Not relief. Something harder. Near the freezer, two dishwashers whispered behind stacked trays. "She planned that, right?" one said. "Like a showpiece or whatever?" "I don't know. I never even heard her hum." They went quiet as she passed. She didn't look at them. In the break room, she pulled her bag down from the hook. Something paper-thin fell out. She caught it before it hit the floor. The letter. The one from the college. The one with the words that no longer mattered. She folded it again, slower this time. Laid it on the high shelf above the microwave. Her hands lingered there a moment. "They heard it," she whispered. Her voice startled her. So soft it felt like someone else had spoken, but not me. Later that night, the new kid from the dish pit tapped her shoulder. "Can I ask you something?" Mabel raised her brow. "Could you, teach me just a little?" She didn't answer right away, just stared at him, this lanky boy with hopeful eyes and sauce on his collar. He added quickly, "Not like lessons, just, a scale or two." She shook her head. "I'm not a teacher." "Oh," he said, backing off. "Yeah, no worries." She watched him go. Her hands stayed at her sides, still tingling. That night, she didn't turn on the TV, didn't cook dinner, just sat on the floor with her back to the couch, eyes closed, palms resting on her knees. Somewhere inside, the music still played. Not a melody, a shape, a presence. She stood up slowly, walked to the table, and traced the imaginary keys again. The next week brought flyers. The manager had printed them himself. Copper Spoons Got Talent, they read, in bold red. Weekly contests. Winners get a paid Friday off. Let's keep the magic going, he said with a wink. Show me what else you got, folks. Mabel glanced at the sign-up sheet. Blank, except for a few names scrawled in big loops. She turned and walked away. On Wednesday, Table 6 called her over. "You gonna play again?" asked a woman with silver hoops. Before she could answer, a man next to her grinned. "Play us some Beyoncé this time." He clapped twice, teasing. Mabel met his eyes, then calmly set down the pitcher of water and walked toward the back, steps slow and steady. The table went quiet. No one laughed. She didn't come back out. The manager called her in the next day. Shut the door. "Look," he said, sighing. "You made a splash. I'm not saying you have to do anything, but don't throw away goodwill, you get me?" She stood with her hands behind her back, like she used to in church. "You're part of the team," he said. "But we need everyone to contribute." Her voice was calm. "I do." "That's not what I mean." She nodded once, just once, then left. She didn't slam the door, but the click behind her felt final. That night, the apartment was quiet again. Her grandmother snored softly in the next room. Mabel stood in the kitchen with the window open. The street lamp buzzed outside, casting a pale orange glow across the counter. She pulled down an old photo, creased and curling at the edges. Her mother, sitting at a piano in a white dress, eyes closed, hands mid-note. The church wall behind her lit with sunlight through stained glass. Mabel touched the image with her thumb. Her throat tightened. Her legs folded. She sat on the floor and let the memory come. Her mother's voice, soft, tired, beautiful. "This is prayer too," she'd said once. "Don't let them tell you it's not." She'd passed when Mabel was 13, but that voice never really left. Friday night. The restaurant was packed again. People ordered louder, laughed harder. One waitress juggled breadsticks. A busboy did backflips. Music blared from a cheap speaker in the corner. Mabel stood near the piano. She hadn't planned to, but her feet brought her there. No one called her name this time. She stepped forward on her own. The sound of forks and plates quieted. Someone whispered, "Is that her?" She sat and played. Not a crowd pleaser, not a show tune. Something older, slower, a piece that curled in on itself, low and searching. There were no lyrics, but it still spoke. Of faith, of longing, of something broken and brave. She played like she was offering it, not performing it, a gift you leave on a doorstep and walk away from. Halfway through, someone at table 4 put down their fork. By the final note, a man near the back had lowered his head into his hands. A woman in a cardigan blinked back tears, and when the music stopped, stillness, deep, reverent stillness. Not a single hand clapped. Not because they weren't moved, but because they didn't want to break it. Mabel sat for a moment longer, her fingers in her lap. Then she stood, walked back into the kitchen. The door swung closed behind her. and outside the restaurant listened to the sound of its own silence. A hush lingered in the dining room long after she disappeared. It wasn't awkward. It wasn't confused. It was something closer to reverence, like the breath after prayer. In a corner booth, an elderly woman set down her wine glass. Pale hands, rings on each finger. She wore a hat with a netted veil and sat very still, eyes on the piano. Then she stood, slow but sure, and walked toward the kitchen. The manager intercepted her with a smile too big for his face. "Wasn't that something?" He beamed. "She's full of surprises, our girl." The woman didn't return the smile. "Where is she?" "She's on break. You can leave a message." "I'll wait." He blinked. "Well, sure. Sure. Can I ask who's asking?" The woman adjusted her gloves. "Director of South Hill Conservatory." His mouth stayed open as she passed. In the back, Mabel was rinsing glasses, shoulders loose now, movements careful. She didn't notice the soft knock at the side door until the second tap. The old woman stepped in, her shoes quiet on the tile. "I heard you," she said. Mabel looked up, a pause held in the air between them. "I was on my way to another dinner," the woman continued, "but I stayed. I haven't done that in years." Mabel didn't speak. The woman looked around the cluttered prep space, then back at her. "We offer 3 full scholarships each year. It's June. We've filled 2. Still, Mabel said nothing. "I'd like you to take the 3rd. Mabel's hands trembled slightly under the stream of warm water. Then she turned off the tap. "I'll take it," she said, "but I want something in return." The woman raised a brow. "I want to teach. Kids from here. Ones who don't get offered anything." The woman was quiet a long time. Then she smiled, gently, like someone seeing something they recognize. "All right," she said. The next morning, Mabel didn't wear her apron. She left it hanging on the hook near the time clock. Didn't even look back at it. The manager came out from his office, holding a clipboard, caught off guard. "You walking out or something?" She stood tall. "I'm done." He made a tight sound in his throat, like he might laugh. "Don't let a little attention go to your head now. You're still staff." Mabel didn't answer, just nodded once and walked past him. He didn't call after her, but something in his face said he would remember this moment longer than he liked. By the weekend, the restaurant hummed with new energy. Some workers whispered. Some just stared. The teenage trainee approached her with a worn-out music book in both hands. "Found this in my aunt's attic," he said. "Figured you'd get more out of it than I ever will." Mabel thumbed the pages. Schubert, Debussy. A few pages water-damaged, all the more beautiful for it. "Thanks," she said. Nothing more. Later, in the alley where the old piano sat, Mr. Rudy from the kitchen walked up, cap in hand. "My little girl," he started. "She's shy like you, but she likes sound, always tapping on stuff." Mabel waited. "You think maybe you'd teach her? If she wanted?" Mabel nodded. No promises. Just yes. Word spread quietly. Someone dropped coins in a mason jar near the counter. Handwritten label, "For a piano." The next day, a bill. Then more. Not many words. Just silent gestures passed hand to hand. One man gave an old stool. A mother brought in snacks for future students. A group of retired teachers helped clear a back room. A few weeks later, where the dusty piano had once leaned against crates, now stood a tiny classroom. White curtains, chipped paint, a fan in the corner that clicked when it turned. But inside it, sunlight. Children, wide-eyed, listened as Mabel tapped out a scale. "This one," she said, "is C, it's home. Every song has a place like that, where it begins, where it can return." She watched them repeat after her, fingers clumsy but eager. "Listen to yourself," she whispered. "Every note is a breath. Let it out." One evening, a white truck pulled up. The manager was gone. A new woman stepped out. Sharp suit, warm smile, the same eyes that had watched Mabel play that second night. She introduced herself quietly, took over without ceremony. The next week, the menu changed. Less noise, more comfort. The live music stayed, but now it came with chairs facing the stage and no phones allowed. Then came another Friday. Chairs full, voices hushed. The piano gleamed beneath a single light. Mabel walked on stage. She wasn't alone. Behind her stood 6 children, mismatched shoes, one clutching a tambourine. The teenage boy held a small drum. One girl adjusted her headband twice before stepping forward. They waited for the room to still. And then, no announcement, no cue, just the start, a low note, a simple line. And together, they made music. Not perfect, not polished, but honest. And no one clapped. Not at first. They just listened. Listened like they didn't want to miss a second. The last note lingered, hung in the air like a held breath. Mabel stood, walked to the front of the small stage. The microphone was barely on, but still, her words carried. She leaned in. "I always played," she said, voice just above a whisper. "Just not for you." She stepped back. The light dimmed, and in that pause, before the applause came, long and deep and full of something more than sound, there was silence again. The kind that sees you,